You know we had a lot of rain when the yard's that clean. What a crazy morning. But at least because it's winter time, I don't have to worry about how much rain there is, which is a nice silver lining. Anyway, what are we doing today? Today we are going to do a very, very important calculation. Do I have enough silage to make it until the springtime? So we have now been using our feeder wagon for the last 6 weeks. I have reduced silage intakes in theory by 2 tonnes a day, which is how much I needed to reduce silage intakes. So we're going to now do a check to see if that is actually happening and if I have enough to make it until the end of March. And the end of March is probably my absolute minimum. I'm hoping I will have more than that. It really doesn't look good, does it? That silage face is really, really far away. The only measurement I actually need is how many bays we've used and how much of the 4th bay that we've ate into. Oh, it's the 5th bay. We're actually in the 5th bay. So I would estimate that we have 25% of the 5th bay left. So that's the number we need when we go back to the computer to work out our current situation. The one nice thing as well is that it has got drier as we've moved back through the silage. So it's a comfortable 28 to 30% dry matter now, which means that it's lasting slightly longer than it looked like it would a month ago. So that's another plus. I will also mention the beast of a shear grab that we got from Quickie. It actually holds over a ton of silage, and I've kind of got into the way of using it now. At the start, it was a wee bit of faffing about, not sure how to get a ton of silage out of it into the feeder wagon without breaking something, but I've kind of got like a system now. I kind of know how to do it, know how to make the grab break up before it falls in. And I have to say, I've been fairly impressed. Do I have any plans to change my shear grab? No, I don't. However, in future, when I do need to change a shear grab, I will definitely be pricing a Quickie. What I really like about it is just smart design decisions. Like my dad was whinging away because these are bolted on instead of welded on, but then I pointed out to him that on our other shear grab, these are welded on, and the eyes always wear out and then break through. The grease nipples on this shear grab are hidden inside the pins, which stops them getting knocked off and broken, and then once they're broken, you obviously never bother fixing them. The pin wears away. It's a whole thing. The cutting edge at the back, the little toe to protect the teeth, and the teeth themselves are all replaceable. So instead of having to get a grinder out and cut them off, you should, in theory, be able to just screw them off and screw on new ones. So even though I've only used it for a month, and it's kind of hard to judge a product when you've only used it for a month, I am very impressed. Biggest downside I see to it is just how slow it closes because of how big the rams are. Like, these are massive compared to my other shear grab. Overall, Quickie, you've done a good job. Okay, I'm going to go feed out some silage and then we'll head up to the office and we'll work out if I'm going to have to buy silage or not. And I'm really hoping not. I've got myself a really nice little routine now for feeding everything, and what I've actually started doing is doing one mix every other day to do the beef, heifers and dry cows. Originally I was doing a different mix for the dry cows to the beef and the heifers, but the two were kind of so close that in the end I just merged them together, and it's been fine. There's been no downsides that I've seen. So every other day I only have to do one mix in the morning, and the total feeding time for everything is really only about 40 minutes, which is pretty much what it was with just block silage. So the beef house need a little bit, the heifers need a little bit, and then we'll go push the silage up to the dry cows. And then we'll go work out if I actually have enough silage to do the year. I think I will have. I am pretty optimistic, to be honest. There's actually a lot of straw in this mix, even though it doesn't look like it. It's just chopped it up so finely that it basically looks like silage again, which is really strange, to be honest. Whilst I'm here, I'll give you a little bit of an update on how the cows are performing with their new total mix ration. And there's no other word for it, they're doing really, really well. The milk yield per cow is currently up over 2 litres on last year, and our total milk sales is the highest that we have ever sold. And that's despite milking 19 less cows than last year. We actually currently have the highest milk yield per cow that we have ever had at the 5th of December. So again, kind of just shows you what the cows are actually doing with the improved diet. So that's the positives. What's the downsides? Well, we are feeding a lot more meal. Per cow, we're actually feeding 5 kilograms more concentrate per cow per day than last year. So the extra milk of 2 litres does kind of make sense. But we'll get into the technical details of them numbers back in the office. I will also add that outside of the dairy cows, I definitely think our heifers are really benefiting from having a TMR. Now the heifers and the beef and the dry cows are also getting much more meal than last year, but they're also getting straw, which is kind of like maybe offsetting a bit of the advantage of the meal because they're not getting such good silage. But despite that, they're just looking really good. Like they look like a really healthy batch of animals that's growing really, really well. Now, is that because of the TMR? Is that because of genetics? I honestly can't say, but I've definitely got no complaints about how things are performing versus how we used to feed our beef animals and our heifers, which was bucketing meal into a trough. Right, I have a gate to open, 1 second. There is another part of this whole puzzle which is kind of hard to financially quantify, but I definitely know it's an advantage, and that is that my beef, heifers and dry cows are now getting a cheap blend combined with cheap straights, which is soya hulls. So the cost per tonne of the actual feed is probably 20 to 30% lower than if I was just feeding the normal nuts. And that's definitely offsetting a little bit of the extra meal that they're getting this year. In fact, it very well could be offsetting most of the extra meal they're getting this year. So it was pretty much all positive so far. And if all of this is making it sound like I'm definitely going to end up buying the feeder wagon, I will just come back to the point that this is the perfect year to be doing this. The meal price is cheap and the milk price is good. I am acutely aware that these sums would be extremely different in a year where meal was expensive and milk was cheap. But it definitely is going to be hard to not have a feeder wagon here next winter. So, we'll see what happens. But I really, really, really need to stop buying everything I get on demo. It's not a good habit. This is our beef house. You never really get to see this on camera. It does the job pretty well. Do we make money on our beef cattle? Don't be ridiculous, of course we don't. But they do give us options whenever we have TB, which is quite often. We lost 3 more animals to TB on Friday. And it also does provide some cash flow benefit when the milk price is bad, but that's kind of hard to explain to people who don't actually have beef cattle. But the whole thing of it holds money together is actually true, and it's not as stupid as it sounds. They also take like no work. Like this is basically the work done for today with beef cattle. I have often wondered What do beef and sheep farmers do all day? Like, surely you just feed them in the morning and that's you done. And don't even get me started on arable farmers, because that really is a mystery. I mean, if I was an arable farmer, what would I be doing today? Literally nothing. It's fine, I only criticise because I'm jealous. This is definitely not the best setup to feed cows in the world. There is a reason for this. I will explain at some point. I really want to do like a farm tour video, and I'll explain, you know, the longer term plan in that video. And it will tell you why this is like this. Okay, that's all the silage done. I shouldn't have to do anything more with this loader until tomorrow morning. So we'll get it parked in a way that will make a good thumbnail, and we'll get one for this video. I think we will reverse in and then sort of set it at like a nice angle. I think that's a good idea. Yeah, maybe I need to be over more this way. Yeah, I like that. That's good. Yeah, that's nice. That should make a very nice thumbnail. Okay, thumbnail is done. I'm pretty happy with it. Let's go check there's no cows calving, because there's 20 heifers that we synchronized that are now calving over the next 3 days. So it's going to be pretty chaotic for a little while. And then we'll head to the computer and we'll finally get our answer. Am I saving enough silage, or am I going to have to go and buy some? Okay, so we have a calve in here, which I still need to move. I forgot about that. This cow calved a day ago, so we know about that. This cow calved about 2 hours ago. I need to tube that calf at some point. Maybe leave that to closer to milking time. It's only an hour from then. And the cow down at the bottom is actually not a cow, it's a heifer. And that is the first heifer of the synchronized batch to calve. The little calf is absolutely tiny. You can just about see him hiding behind there. Pretty much all of these are going to calve in the next 2 weeks, and it's going to be absolute chaos. Normally we don't calve over Christmas. I've always taken 3 weeks off by just stopping AIing for 3 weeks. But because our fertility and AI went really badly last year, I decided not to take the 3 weeks off and instead keep AIing to try to get animals back in calve. And I'm happy because it worked, but I now have like 45 animals calving in December, whereas normally we might have 10 or 11 at the shoulders of December. So it's going to be a much busier Christmas this year, but I'm not complaining. You really want your animals in calve. I'm pretty sure I actually measured the silage pits this day last year. I think it was the 5th of December. So we should be able to get a direct day-to-day comparison as to how much silage we have left. And that will make this pretty accurate and extremely useful. Let's get my slippers on for this. Okay, let's work out if I have enough silage. We have 3 key numbers that we need to use. Number 1, how much silage are we currently using per day? Number 2, how much silage less than last year are we using per day? And number 3, how much silage do we have available left? So let's start with the easiest figure, which is actually how much are we saving per day. This little table shows us how much milk we are producing over the last 5 years on this exact day. And it will also tell us how much meal we are feeding, and importantly, how many cows we are milking. So as you can see, the cows are milking really well. We're actually producing the most milk ever, including more than last year, but we have 19 less cows milking. So that's our first saving versus last year, which is 19 cows less. If we work that all through, it gives us a saving of 750 kilograms of silage versus last year. The second saving comes from slightly restricting the cow's forage intakes. There's a little bit of an assumption here based on how much the cows were actually eating last year, but we're going to go conservative and say the cows were eating 12 kilograms of silage per cow per day. This year we are trying to aim for 9.5 kilograms of silage per cow per day, but it does sometimes fluctuate, but for the sake of this video we're saying 9.5. So that gives us a saving of 2.5 kilograms of silage dry matter per day, which is just over 8 kilograms of silage fresh weight per day, which is 1.25 tonne. So if you add them two numbers together, 1.25 tonne plus 0.75 tonne, you get our saving of 2 tonnes of silage per day versus last year. So we have the difference versus last year. Now we need to know how much we're currently feeding per day this year. This morning I put 5 tonnes of silage into the feeder wagon to feed the dairy cows. And then every other day I make a mix for the beef animals, the heifers and the dry cows, and it's around 4 tonne of silage, which would be 2 tonnes per day. So that means we are using 7 tonnes of silage per day. When you factor in that I am also feeding 200 kilograms of straw to the beef and heifers, plus extra meal, which is definitely resulting in some saving on silage, you can see why I think we might actually have enough now. There is a very good chance we were using between 9.5 to 10 tonne of silage per day last year, and we have managed to get that down to just 7 tonnes. Now the final piece of the puzzle, how much silage do we have available? How much is left? This is a little bit more difficult to calculate, but I did weigh a grab of silage a few weeks ago for a TikTok video, so I actually have a really good idea of the density to work out the tonnage. To do this, I need to open up a table called forage produced, and I need to use the measurements I took to work out how much is left. Let's do the unopened silage pit first, and then we'll work out what we have left in our closed silage pit. There is an out farm, there's also a silage pit there. We're not going to work that out because generally there's enough silage there to do the animals that are there and very little left extra either way. So we're just going to sort of ignore that for now. If anything, there will be a small surplus there, but I'm kind of keeping that as my insurance policy. My head is not working today. Like it actually feels broken. So we're going to sum the volume. So we're going to go 1 metre times by 12.5 metres times by 4.8, which is the width. So in the silo 2 in bay 1, we have 60 cubic metres of silage. So now we need a density value, and we're going to use 0.75. It should really be 0.8. We're going to go a little bit lower than actually measured because just like a little safety margin, and we're going to multiply our volume by our tonnes per cubic metre, and that gives us 45 tonnes. Now we need to prevent these numbers from changing incorrectly, like so. And now we can just drag that down 8 bays, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and we can drag it across, bloop. And then we can total. These numbers look small. That's not a lot. That's not a lot. Fudge. Fudge. That is terrifying. That is actually terrifying. Where's all my silage? That is terrifying. I have done it wrong as well, with less. I don't have a full bay 5. I've only got 25% of that left. Oh balls, oh balls. Oh flip. I'm actually worried. Okay. Let's sum these two together. So according to my calculations, we have 1,354 tonnes of silage left in our silage pits. And just for context, we make about 3,500 tonnes a year. Now there is some silage on the out farm, but realistically it's probably only about 300 tonne. So I have used 60% of my year's silage, and it's the 5th of December. Oh my goodness, I'm actually worried. I am actually worried. I just went through and checked all my numbers, and annoyingly, they seem to be correct. I'm multiplying the width by the height by the depth of the bay, and multiplying it by 0.75, which is being generous for how many tons you would have in a meter cubed, and that's giving me my total. 1,354 tons. Right, how many days is it until the 1st of April? And then we'll see how many days silage we actually have. I'm just going to ask ChatGPT to tell me the answer. How many days until April 1st? Right, it's 116 days. Okay, that makes me happy. Okay, so we have 116 days until April 1st. Now, we obviously need more silage into April 1st because it will be the 1st of May before we're actually lifting silage, but that's where we're aiming for. The weather is shocking. Oh my days. So if we were to continue using the same amount of silage we are currently until April 1st, we would require 812 tons of silage. This seems like it's wrong, okay? That seems low. That does seem low. But that's a fact. We are weighing the silage we're using. So that can't be wrong. 812 tons. Now, obviously, our herd size does increase as we move through the year. So I now need to slightly adjust how much we're using to account for the next 3 to 4 months. So I'm going to try and work that out properly. I'll come back to you with our average use figure, which will give us a more accurate figure for how much silage I need. Plus 2,000 gives us 7.5 tons a day. So it's only slightly up on what we're currently using. So we multiply that by 116 days, we get 870 tons. So let's just say 900 tons of silage to get us to the 1st of April. What have I missed? I must have missed something. I feel like I have missed something, to be perfectly honest, because even if I factor back in our saving of 2 tons a day, it would still mean that we have enough silage, because I would only then need 1,150 tons to make it to the 1st of April. And that makes me very, very suspicious of my figures, because we only had a little bit of silage left last year, but we produced a heck of a lot more. I'm honestly now more confused than before I started trying to work this out. Give me 20 minutes to go through this and try and understand this better, and I'll come back to you and I'll explain it in a succinct way, hopefully. I have figured it out, and I am so relieved with the result. So I went back through my old TikToks and was trying to figure out if I could see how much silage I had left at this point last year. And then I stumbled across this. A TikTok of me measuring how much silage I had on the 18th of December 2023. I have put that information into the same calculator which we used to work out this year's silage, and it came out with 1,480 tons, which is actually not that much more than our 1,354 tons that we currently have. However, the 18th is 13 days time, so we have to add 91 tons of silage, which gives us 1,570 tons at this point last year. Kinda, it's actually slightly more than that. We'll say it's 1,600 tons, which means that this day compared to this day last year, we have 250 tons less silage, which ties in really nicely with my requirement, which I calculated back at the start of October, to save 2 tons a day. That would be a saving of 230 tons from now until the 1st of April. That sounds believable. So let's summarize what we have just worked out. In 2023, there was around 250 extra tons of silage in this silage pit. However, we had roughly the same amount of silage left in here. And in the early autumn, that wasn't the case. We were actually much further into this silage pit than we had been in 2023. So we have made up some ground already. So essentially, the shortage we have been left with is the difference in the amount of silage on the other side of that wall. And because this year we have adopted the strategy of feeding a lot of extra meal through the feeder wagon, we are able to save 2 tons of silage a day, which is actually 28% compared to last year. That's not all just because of feeding meal. We also have significantly less animals, less milking cows, and less heifers and beef animals as well. So if you add all of that together, from now until the 1st of April, we are predicted to save 230 tons. Pretty much exactly what we are short on the other side of that wall. So I think this whole strategy of how I was going to make it through this winter has actually worked. Well, maybe not worked, it's maybe too early to say that, but it's definitely working. I am so genuinely relieved to have that answer. I honestly was not sure what way them calculations were going to go. So what this basically means is I probably am unlikely to need to buy any silage this year, which is a really big plus, because buying silage is very expensive. However, I am feeding all that extra meal. So let's take a minute and work out if it's worth it. This won't be in great detail. Think of this just like an informal update. We are getting 2.2 litres extra per cow per day at the minute versus last year. 2.2 litres times 50p is just over £1 a cow a day, or 160 pounds total. We are feeding 4.8 kilograms extra meal at a price around 24p a kilogram. The straights really help to pull that price down. So it's 4.8 times by 22p is £1 per cow per day, which is pretty much exactly the same as we're getting back in milk yield. Remember I said this is the exceptional year? Well, this is why. Meal is cheap and milk is expensive. So the extra milk is cancelling out the extra meal. So all I'm left with is the saving of silage. And at 2 tonne per cow per day, at £50 a tonne for silage, I am better off by £100 a day. What have I missed? Have I done something wrong again? 4.8 kilograms of meal, £240 divided by 1,000, 24p, times 4.8 kilograms of meal extra per cow per day is £1.15 per cow. 2.2 litres times by 50p a litre is 1. It's the same. The meal and the milk cancel each other out. I'm saving 2 tonnes of silage a day at £50 a tonne, which is what it currently is. That's £100 a day. I am better off by £100 a day. How does that? I don't have to buy the silage. It's the value I make the silage at that I should be using. Yes, that would make more sense. So really, it's probably closer to 60 or 70 pounds a day if you say that it costs you between 30 and 35 pound a tonne to make silage. Still, that is quite the result. I am short of silage and I am 70 pounds a day better off than if I'd just made enough silage. That is so counterintuitive, it actually hurts my head. Like, I feel like I've made a mistake somewhere here, but I honestly don't think I have. The simple fact is, in 2024, meal is so cheap and milk is so expensive that it's a no-brainer to feed a lot of concentrates to get more milk. It's basically the perfect year to be short of silage. And here's the really interesting bit in all of this. If I had decided instead of feeding extra meal to buy silage or to buy maize, which is going to be pretty rubbish this year if you're buying it from anywhere close to me, it would have only been a cost. The maize and the bought-in silage is highly unlikely to have been as good as the silage I could produce myself. So in all likelihood, it may have even hurt my milk yields. And it definitely would not have pushed my milk yields like feeding extra meal has. That is crazy. That's actually a crazy concept to think about. But it's also the reality of farming. Sometimes the right decision is really not obvious and only becomes clear through the immense struggle of trying to work stuff like this out. Anyway, that's going to do us for this week. I hope you enjoyed this little journey down the rabbit hole of trying to work out a really, really important calculation on this farm for this winter. And hopefully you can see how important making a right decision can be on a dairy farm. And very often, it is not obvious what the right decision is, and you only really know if you made a good or bad decision months after you've made it. This time, I think I did make the right decision. I think it has paid off for me, assuming I haven't made any mistakes in my calculations, but I have checked and checked again, and I am very, very relieved that I think I will be able to make it through this winter with the current system I am operating and with the current silage I have here. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any comments, stick them down below. Please do like this video and subscribe if you haven't. I will see you on Wednesday for an update on Farm Theory News.